If you ever doubted the power of government, President Donald Trump just made a healthcare decision for Coloradans. Denver Health tells Next it will no longer do gender-affirming surgeries for people under the age of 19 rather, in an attempt to hold on to its federal funding. Trump's attempting to freeze all federal spending that does not align with his beliefs and priorities. So that's meant taking aim at trans people, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and abortion. While Denver Health is ending gender-affirming surgeries for minors, it has not yet announced if there will be a policy change on gender-based hormone treatment. Last night here on Next, you heard Denver Health say it gets $89 million a year from the federal government, not including Medicaid funding. The metro area's safety net hospital is not in a position to lose funding. Before convincing Denver's voters last year to approve a $70 million a year sales tax hike, Denver Health's leaders said that they were in a financial death spiral due to the cost of uncompensated care. Different bosses have different motivational tactics. The new boss of the federal government says his 2 million civilian employees, including 40,000 people in Colorado, need to come back to work in person, work harder, and be loyal, or get out. Federal employees are now deciding what to do with President Trump's ultimatum and loyalty test. Our Marshall Zellinger talked with a couple of federal employees who seem less than motivated.
An email with the subject line, "Fork in the Road," gives off poetic Robert Frost vibes. But after reading it, the email received by 40,000 federal employees in Colorado seems kind of frosty.
It was just a stomach drop feeling, where you're like, all right, so do I have a job tomorrow?
You can imagine why federal employees, like the one you just heard, do not want to be identified. Federal workers just received an email to commit to return to the office, among other expectations, or resign, and accept a deferred resignation effective in September. Many federal workers, like the next voice you're about to hear, are still remote, and some were hired for remote work.
Because we are a remote team, I have a coworker who's in Hawaii, one in Oklahoma, one in Florida. We're never together face to face other than on Teams.
The union representing federal workers in 36 departments strongly urges federal workers to not resign in response to the email. The email itself came from an unusual email address, hr@opm.gov. OPM is the Office of Personnel Management, basically human resources for federal workers. One of the first emails from that new email address came with a warning to not click on the link in the email, which required a second email without the spam warning saying, no, really, this is a legit email address.
We thought those emails were just phishing scams. We had no idea this was even real.
After the commit or resign email yesterday, a web page with frequently asked questions was created. One of the FAQs, why am I being offered a deferred resignation? The answer, the federal workforce is expected to undergo significant near-term changes. You may wish to depart on terms that provide you with sufficient time and economic security.
Now we don't know if there'll be loyalty tests, if we're going to have to basically bow down and say, okay, yes, we will pledge allegiance to every single thing that the president's doing, or our jobs are gone.
There is still uncertainty. If you were to resign, if you would actually get severance. One reason the recommendation is to not resign. Though the first FAQ on that website is, if I resign, am I expected to work until September? And the answer listed on the FAQ site is no, except in rare cases. So that idea that if I resign today, I'll get paid for the next 6-7 months. Sounds nice.
Actually, you got to notify people somehow. But this mass email thing is wild, right? If we got emailed from the head of our company saying, if you want to quit. Even if you wanted to go all Johnny Paycheck and say, take this job and shove it. I don't know that I would have the cojones to reply, resign to an email and be like, bloop.
Particularly when the first email from that email address was spam, hey, this came from outside the organization, and also that this happened at Twitter 3 years ago. This is the same format, fork in the road, that Elon Musk sent to Twitter employees when he bought Twitter, and it's wait, people have been through this before. We saw how that worked out, so yeah, there's caution here. I'm waiting to hear back from employment attorneys who are well-versed in kind of federal employment to find out what the best practice for the 40,000 Colorado employees that may be 7-month paid vacation while I find another job, that could work.
40,000 people in Colorado, there was somebody last night who turned their caps lock on, wrote resign, hit the button, and was like, honey, I did it. I'm out. That's it.
No regret.
Find that person, Marshall. Find that person. Thank you. So the Trump administration is already abandoning its order to temporarily freeze trillions of dollars in federal funding after 24 hours of panic and confusion for hospitals, schools, nonprofits, state agencies. The administration was backpedaling almost as soon as that order went out Monday night. The White House was calling it a temporary freeze on federal grants and loans. They said they wanted to wipe out spending on so-called woke initiatives, DEI, gender ideology. But schools and healthcare providers, food programs, government benefit organizations weren't clear on who was going to lose funding. The freeze was supposed to take effect last night, then it was temporarily blocked in court. Now the Trump administration has rescinded it altogether, although they still want a review of spending. Some 600,000 Venezuelans protected from deportation in the closing days of the Biden administration now have an uncertain future after the Trump administration signaled the end to those protections today. Earlier this month, Biden's Department of Homeland Security announced an 18-month extension on temporary protected status, or TPS, for nearly 600,000 people from Venezuela. That protected them from deportation and allowed them to legally work in the U.S. while they waited for an immigration decision. This can be applied to migrants when there are problems in their home country, like the political violence in Venezuela. Trump's newly installed DHS secretary canceled that extension today, but has not explained what will happen to people under that status, which will expire for them as early as April. Trump tried to end most TPS protections during his first term, but he was blocked at that time by federal courts, which worried about the economic impact of suddenly removing hundreds of thousands of people from the workforce.
Authorized to work in the United States. That means they're working on the books with Social Security, paying taxes, paying into Social Security and Medicare, and all of the things that American tax dollars support. I think there's some real implications for our economic well-being as a community if we lose all of those workers very quickly.
We should mention TPS does not just apply to Venezuelans. More than 200,000 El Salvadorans, Ukrainians, people from Sudan were also protected by that same order. At this point, the Trump administration has not said whether it'll end those protections. Today, Denver Mayor Mike Johnston laid out his 2025 goals for the city, acknowledging out loud that immigration will dominate the conversations to come. I had a conversation with the mayor this morning when I asked if there is something that Denver could and should be doing to help ICE remove violent criminals from the city.
We know that often that notification comes very late to ICE. Could Denver not commit to say, if we're dealing with somebody that has a violent criminal history, we'll give you a week. We'll give you a week's heads up for the best chance of that person not going out on the streets?
We don't ever intentionally get that out late. Often they'll send it to us late and we'll get it back to them as soon as we know. If we're partnering on a violent criminal, we have no desire to make that more difficult for them. What we won't do is we're not going to help ICE on a workforce raid of a restaurant. We're not going to help ICE on an act, to raid a church or a hospital or a school. Civil warrants, which means if your only infraction is that you came to the country without documentation, we're not going to enforce that.
You said this morning that there are people in the city who are afraid.
Yes.
Are you one of those people?
I am afraid for members of our community who I've talked to who I know are afraid, and there are some things we can do to support them, and there are some things that will be outside of our control.
House Republicans want you to go to Congress to testify about sanctuary cities. Are you going to go voluntarily, or are you going to make them make you?
So my response to this is I'm open to having a productive conversation about what they can do to address federal immigration reform if that's the purpose. If they want to have a substantive conversation about those solutions, I'm open to going. If it's theater for theater's sake, that's not a good use of my time or the city of Denver's resources. I'm not afraid of having a direct conversation about what they're doing. What we're clear is their failure to act on federal immigration reform is what requires cities to put together patchwork solutions the best that they can. We think Denver has a very common sense approach, and it's worked for us. It worked for us under the past Trump administration. It worked for us under Biden. It will work for us again going forward.
President Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, has said that sanctuary cities like Denver that limit ICE arrests in jails and courthouses are then going to see more mass raids out in the community that result in collateral arrests of people who are not criminals. I asked Mayor Johnston today if he sees the logic in that. You can see his answer in our full interview, which is on the next YouTube channel or on the next podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. For 241 Wednesdays now, You all have proven what $5 can do, piling up your $5 micro-giving donations to raise $14 million for Colorado's nonprofits. I don't want to go all inflation on you, but this week I want to talk about what $6 or $7 can do. This week's Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign supports the nonprofit Kids Pack in northern Colorado. For 15 years, they've fed families in the Thompson School Districts, Loveland, Berthoud, Johnstown. For $6 or $7, Kids Pack puts together a food bag with 6 meals that those kids take home on the weekends. Hundreds of volunteers organize and deliver those food bags to 36 schools along with community partners like libraries and the Salvation Army. More than a third of the kids in the Thompson School District need help to avoid hunger. I want to read to you what Kids Pack's longtime leader told me recently. He said, "It's scary." He said, "If you drove around Loveland, you would never know we have that kind of need." The need is great, but Kids Pack is meeting it relentlessly, week after week for years. Kind of like you do here. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get the link to donate. Your $14 million in microgiving proves the power of small donations. You know I'll never ask you to give if I don't myself. So as always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. 4,000 of you have signed up to simplify your giving with a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. And that's meant that we have started your recent weekly microgiving campaigns with more than $30,000 for each nonprofit. That's where we start. Use the same QR code or text to get there. Well, here's the deal. Colorado Senator Michael Bennet only gets to raise his voice once per congressional term. And today, he cashed that in.
If someone would have told me years ago that I would be leading the charge on this work, I would have thought, I don't know what you're talking about.
But thanks to her, Colorado is finally officially embracing the Lunar New Year. That's next. Colorado's Democratic Senator Michael Bennet is like a cicada of confrontation, relatively dormant and unheard of for years at a time, and then all of a sudden, boom, he emerges and just unleashes on somebody. He went off on Republican Senator Ted Cruz a couple years ago, remember that? And today, Bennet eviscerated President Trump's pick to lead America's health systems, anti-vaccine activist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr.'s built his career on conspiracy theories and misinformation about health and science, and the cicada of confrontation was having none of it.
Did you say that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people? Did you say that exposure to pesticides causes children to become transgender?
No, I never said that.
Okay, I have the record that I'll give to the chairman, and he can make his judgment.
Kennedy's one of President Trump's most controversial cabinet picks, and a whole lot of them. Today, Democrats and a few Republicans criticized his anti-vaccine activism, asked whether he stands to make money from lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies, talked about his past support for abortion, whether he will dismantle federal Medicaid programs. Despite those concerns, RFK Jr. does have support from some Democrats, like Colorado Governor Jared Polis, who cheered RFK's nomination as an anti-pharma crusader. Today, Bennet urged his Republican colleagues to nominate somebody who can, quote, adhere to science.
You say it, Mr. Kennedy.
This
matters. It doesn't matter what you come here and say that isn't true, that's not reflective of what you really believe, that you haven't said over decade after decade after decade, because unlike other jobs we're confirming around this place, this is a job where it is life and death.
Unclear whether Senator Bennett's roasting of RFK Jr. is going to move the needle on this. Kennedy's task is to convince some wavering Republican holdouts that he should vote to be confirmed.
I'm tracking a southern Colorado storm that could bring snow close to the metro area for the drive tomorrow. It's not an overly cold storm. It's a fast-moving storm. But after 3 days with temperatures near 50 degrees, this will be a bit of a change overnight, and you may have a slower commute as a result in the morning. Temperature down to 38 after that high of 49. Moisture beginning to increase in the southern mountains, where winter weather and travel advisories will go out. Could see up to a foot of snow above 8,000 feet in the San Juan and La Garita range. No advisories for Denver, but south of Denver, Palmer Divide out to Fort Morgan, it is certainly possible that we will see several inches of snow that could impact the drive tomorrow morning. So partial weather impact day simply because of the accumulation south and east of the metro area. So this is your forecast heading into Thursday, and then a warm weather trend that'll see us near 60 degrees by Sunday.
I want that curiosity to not only spark people's interest, but I want it to open their hearts.
Get ready for your heart to be opened, which sounds more invasive than it is. Next. Billions of people across the globe are celebrating the Lunar New Year. Colorado's just getting with the program. Our Angeline McCall spoke with the woman responsible for this being the second officially recognized Lunar New Year celebration in our state.
These cute little guys.
The traditions to celebrate the Lunar New Year
They're little.
are what Na Vung Sandoval wants to share with others.
They're little lions that you would see normally at the lion dances, but as you can see, they're so cute. They have the little white whiskers, and so it represents ushering the new year.
She wants others to understand its importance.
I want it to be something that people have a curiosity about and asking us questions like, well, what does the year of the snake mean? Why the long noodles? I want that curiosity to not only spark people's interest, but I want it to open their hearts. This is the most celebrated holiday amongst Asian countries, at least 9 of them across the world, and over 2 billion people.
Na celebrates the holiday every year with her family. It's a part of her.
Some of the misconceptions around that is that it's used simultaneously and synonymously with Chinese New Year. What's significant about this holiday to distinguish it from Chinese New Year is that there's at least 9 other countries, including Vietnam, which is my home country, that celebrates it as well.
Another misconception, that it can only be celebrated by those who identify as Asian.
Of welcoming for other demographics, for other cultures.
It's why Na worked to see that Colorado distinguishes the Lunar New Year as an official observed holiday, signed by Governor Polis in 2023.
I'm emotional about the fact that I had the opportunity to contribute in that way. That is something not only meaningful to me as a Vietnamese refugee, but also as an Asian woman. I believe that if you embrace who you are and you embrace your origins and your culture and everything that comes along with it, it will become something much bigger than the one person.
The organization that Na founded, Refugees and Immigrants United, is hosting a Lunar New Year celebration next Saturday in Colorado Springs. It marks their very first celebration down in the Springs for this holiday. And when they actually observed the holiday, when this was made into a bill, made into a law, what was really cool is they had these pins made, and so I'm really lucky to have one of them. It has a lion on it, which is obviously really representative of the Lunar New Year as well.
Beautiful celebration. Angeline McCall, thank you. Back with your feedback next. All right, let's feed some kids so they don't go hungry on the weekend, shall we? The nonprofit Kids Pack has done that for 15 years in the Thompson School District in and around Loveland. For $6 or $7, they'll fill a bag with 6 take-home meals for students. They told me hunger's not going away. In fact, need has risen each of the last 4 years. Kids Pack distributes 700 food bags each week. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871 to get that link to join me in donating to Kids Pack. Viewer writes in to ask how they can bump up their monthly donation to $6 or $7. Just scan the code. It'll take you to the website. You log in. You can change your donation there. Gray says, Kyle's a turd.